Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Shanda vander trial. On today's video, we're gonna cover the charges that she is facing and both opening statements from the state and the defense. I just want to say thank you guys. This is gonna be the start of a new series. I'm gonna cover the whole trial. Um, give it a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed to help this new video get to more people so we can all see what this person did, or maybe he didn't. I actually haven't seen the end of this trial. I just the only thing that I've seen is on one stream. I saw that the first witness, I think, the brother, and that's all that I've seen of this case. So if you guys can help me out with that to get it to a new audience, I'm gonna release this edit. This is my edit. I'm gonna put it there, so put it on the description. So if you guys want to watch the video without commentary, it's also there. All right, without further ado, let's get into the video.
The defendant is charged with first-degree felony murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant caused the death of Timothy Ferguson. That is, that Timothy Ferguson died as a result of starvation and or physical neglect and abuse. Second, that the defendant had one of these three states of mind. She intended to kill, or she intended to do great bodily harm to Timothy Ferguson.
And there she is. And I just want to say, she doesn't look bothered by this. Like right from the get-go, if I were the jury and I was just looking at her, she doesn't look like they're saying they're telling her all this stuff that she's gonna be accused of, and she's just like, okay. She doesn't look bothered by it.
Or she knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of her actions. Third, that when she did the act that caused the death of Timothy Ferguson, the defendant was committing or attempting to commit.
And I think she's chewing gum. I don't think that's she's moving her jaw a lot, so I don't know if that's just a tick or she's chewing gum.
Commit or helping someone else commit the crime of first-degree child abuse. For the crime of first-degree child abuse, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that Shanda vander is the parent of Timothy Ferguson. Second, that the defendant either knowingly or intentionally caused serious physical harm and or serious mental harm to Timothy Ferguson. By serious physical harm, I mean any physical injury to a child that seriously impairs the child's health or physical well-being, including but not limited to brain damage, a skull or bone fracture, subdural hemorrhage or hematoma, dislocation, sprain, internal injury, poisoning, burn, or scald or severe cut. By serious mental harm, I mean an injury to a child's mental condition that results in visible signs of an impairment in the child's judgment, behavior, ability to recognize reality, or ability to cope with the ordinary demands of life. Third, that Timothy Ferguson was at the time under the age of 18. The fourth element in first-degree felony murder is that the killing was not justified, excused, or done under circumstances that reduce it to a lesser crime. In determining whether the act causing death occurred while the defendant was committing or attempting to commit or helping someone else commit the crime of first-degree child abuse, you should consider the following: the length of time between the commission of first-degree child abuse and the murder. Second, the distance between the scene of first-degree child abuse and the scene of the murder. Third, whether there is a causal connection between the murder and first-degree child abuse. Fourth, whether there is a continuity of action between first-degree child abuse and the murder. And fifth, whether the murder was committed during an attempt to escape. You may also consider the lesser charge of second-degree murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay, so she's not only getting the first-degree murder, she's also considered for lesser degrees, which is good, because if she did it, like first degree is the maximum, like that will be just like the end of life. But if the state doesn't convince the jury enough, there's also those lesser charges that she can be liable.
First, that the defendant caused the death of Timothy Ferguson. That is, that Timothy Ferguson died as a result of starvation and or physical neglect and abuse. Second, that the defendant had one of these three states of mind. She intended to kill, or she intended to do great bodily harm to Timothy Ferguson, or she knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of her actions. Third, that the killing was not justified, excused, or done under circumstances that reduce it to a lesser crime. The defendant is charged with the crime of first-degree child abuse. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that Shanda Vander is the parent of Timothy Ferguson. Second, that the defendant either knowingly or intentionally caused serious physical harm and or serious mental harm to Timothy Ferguson. By serious physical harm, I mean any physical injury to a child that seriously impairs the child's health or physical well-being, including but not limited to brain damage, a skull or bone fracture, subdural hemorrhage or hematoma, dislocation, sprain, internal injury, poisoning, burn, or scald or severe cut. By serious mental harm, I mean an injury to a child's mental condition that results in visible signs of an impairment in the child's judgment, behavior, ability to recognize reality, or ability to cope with the ordinary demands of life. Third, that Timothy Ferguson was at the time under the age of 18. It is not a crime to discipline a child. A parent, guardian, or any person otherwise allowed by law or authorized by the parent or guardian may use force to discipline a child. But this does not mean that any amount of force may be used.
That is interesting. I didn't know that. Like I know I don't know if in the states, in all the states, is that an option, but I don't know I didn't know that it was legal there to just discipline with force to a child. It's interesting.
The law permits only such force as is reasonable. The defendant is not required to prove that the acts alleged here were reasonable. The prosecutor must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the force used was not reasonable as discipline.
All right. So those were the charges that she's like first degree, second degree, child abuse, like all of that. So now we're gonna go into the opening statement. The state is gonna go first, and then the defense. So let's hear it. I edit this and I try to listen as little as possible. So this is gonna be kind of new to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan, I want to thank you for your time and attention to these matters. We certainly had some lighthearted moments yesterday during the jury selection process, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as Mr. Johnson and I repeatedly told you yesterday, and this is not in any way an overstatement of this, the facts and circumstances here are just simply horrific. I wish that I could spare you from some of the details in this case, but I cannot. Quite simply, it is the position of the people of the state of Michigan that Shanda Vander committed the crime of first-degree felony murder when, during the course of physical and mental abuse in the first degree of her child, Timothy Ferguson died. As we referenced many times yesterday, unfortunately, as part of this process, you will see some very graphic photographs. Images that...
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt the lawyer, but I'm gonna try as possible to... If I saw them on the trial, I don't know. Depends on it how graphic are they. I may choose to blur them or just outright edit them out. I want to keep this channel just like about the trial, not about all of the other stuff about that. But I'll see it as I go because sometimes it is important.
Will not easily leave your mind. But I don't want you to focus on just those photographs, as I repeatedly told you yesterday. I want you to look at the entire picture here. I will tell you this, the entire picture is just as horrific. The average 15-year-old male weighs 132 pounds and is 68 inches tall. At the time of his death, Timothy Ferguson was right on that average height. 68 inches tall. At the time of his death, Timothy Ferguson weighed 69 pounds.
Wait. So he was almost as tall as he was in weight. That's never good. How? How can you get that low?
How does this happen? How does a 15-year-old child die as a result of malnutrition?
Yeah.
How is a 15-year-old child 63 pounds under the average weight?
63
How is a
under.
15
Like I know kilos, so that's like 25 to 30 kilos less. You need to just not eat to get that low. Were they not were they not feeding him
15-year-old child
at all?
in literally the 0 percentile for weight? How? The how of this begins to unfold on July 6th of 2022 when police officers from the Norton Shores Police Department are dispatched to 4788 Marshall Road in Norton Shores. The first officer on scene is there. ProMed's already on scene, and they've already found Timothy Ferguson deceased in the basement level of that home. You're going to see photographs of that home. It's a bi-level home, and Timothy Ferguson is in the basement of that home. By the time the officer arrives, Timothy Ferguson is deceased and has been deceased for some time.
Wow. So how do they know about that? Who
It's immediately obvious to ProMed, just as it is to Officer Stefanich, who you will hear from this morning, that Timothy Ferguson is severely malnourished. Now, there's another layer of mystery that is discovered the next day as it relates to the cause of death of Timothy Ferguson. And you will hear from the medical examiner that in addition to the severe malnourishment that caused his death, Timothy Ferguson also showed signs of hypothermia. How does a 15-year-old child in Michigan in July have hypothermia? The pieces of that puzzle start to unfold as the police investigation does. Officer Stefanich begins to notice, in addition to the shocking image of Timothy Ferguson, deceased, other things unusual in the home. There's leg cuffs in the basement. There's cameras everywhere. There's hot sauce in the bathroom. Upstairs in the upper level of the home, there's locks on the refrigerator and the freezer. More cameras, motion sensors, alarms, everywhere in the house. And in the basement, as if part of some demented version of Harry Potter, there's a small closet, again with an alarm on the door. Inside that closet, a blue tarp just laying on the floor in a small box. That room, as officers later come to learn, is called the small room. That was Timothy Ferguson's bedroom. That's where he was.
So basically, he wasn't living in that house. He was a prisoner. Like that sounds like a prison. Like straight up. Like all the cameras, all the sensors, all the little room where he slept. He wasn't living at all.
Was forced to sleep. The leg cuffs, also for Timothy Ferguson. The cameras, also for Timothy Ferguson. To watch his every movement. His every movement monitored by his mother on those cameras. The bathroom camera. Who puts a camera in a bathroom? The bathroom camera is literally a motion tracking camera, and the officer notices as soon as he walks into the bathroom that the camera starts to follow his motion. Again, hot sauce in the bathroom. Why is there hot sauce in the bathroom? These are all questions at the time the police officers have, but they have no explanation for most of it. All they know is that Timothy Ferguson died as a result of malnutrition. As is obvious to anybody that would just see him, look at him. So Officer Stefanich starts to ask some questions. And Ms. Vander says, well, he's been on a hunger strike for the last couple of weeks. He hasn't been eating. And I noticed last night he wasn't eating really good, so I made him some toast with some peanut butter or some butter on it, and I made him eat it, and then he went to bed.
Why would a 15-year-old get on a hunger strike? Like, did she say it was for some reason that he was on that? Like, I don't buy that you will go on a hunger strike at 15 and just not eat and just, no, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
And then more detectives become involved in the investigation. And more statements coming out from Ms. Vander about some of the unusual things in the home. The leg cuffs. Oh, those are Paul Ferguson. Paul Ferguson is the older boy that lives in the house. He's 19 at the time. And you're going to hear from Paul Ferguson. And I'm just going to tell you right now, you're not going to like Paul Ferguson. I don't like Paul Ferguson.
Yeah, I just heard 2 sentences about him, and I don't like him now.
Paul Ferguson was a contributing factor to the death of his brother. What you will come to learn is that what Paul Ferguson was the strong arm for the defendant. When she wanted a punishment inflicted upon Timothy, she used Paul to do it. And Paul did it.
So she didn't even have like I get really mad about when stuff comes up about kids, and this person didn't even have the guts to do it herself. So she had someone else do her dirty work.
And he will tell you that he did those things. And he will tell you he is remorseful about those things, as he should be. Because the mental and physical abuse that those two individuals inflicted upon Timothy Ferguson over the course of multiple months, from February of 2022 until the time of his death in July, caused his death. For all intents and purposes, Timothy Ferguson was a prisoner in his own home.
Yeah.
He never went to a doctor. He never went to school. The only time he was allowed to leave the house was if he was being punished and he had to run up and down the stairs in the backyard where nobody could see him, or walk the dog in the backyard, again, where nobody could see him. You don't have to take my word for it. You will hear in the text messages between Paul Ferguson and Shanda Vander the extent of the horrors they inflicted upon Timothy. You will hear about his every movement being monitored by motion sensors and alarms on his body, multiple alarms on his body. Cameras watching his every move, making sure he did not go upstairs without permission, making sure he did not go to the bathroom without permission. And when he went to the bathroom, he got 1 minute if he had to pee and 2 minutes if he had to poop. Some of you might already be saying to yourself, this sounds too incredible to be true. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. You will hear the text messages. You will see right there in print, right there before your very eyes, everything that I'm telling you. His access to food denied. Locks on the freezer. Locks on the refrigerator. Alarm on the pantry door.
Like, I don't get it. This is a child. Like, why would you need to monitor a child? You just need to be a parent to them. And that's it. Like, I don't understand yet why would you do any of this?
Alarms on the door to the small room where he was forced to sleep.
And again, there's people that don't need to be a parent. Like, if you cannot handle the kid, you don't need to have him there. Like, I get it. Maybe you are a bad parent. Maybe you can recognize to yourself that you are not fit to care for a child, but there's ways to go about that. Maybe he can find a family that can handle the stress of being a parent. But if you cannot do it, you are not forced to.
Now, interestingly, when we talk about that alarm on the small room, you're going to see the photographs of that alarm. When the police are there the first day, they take photographs of the scene. And as the investigation progresses, they go back the next day. Strangely, that alarm has been removed.
So they try to hide evidence. Ah, this is so wrong. Like, I don't know why we are having a trial. Like, why is there's apparently there's video evidence, there's photo evidence, and there's the fact that they found him in the house. What is the defense here?
The police get the text messages and start to go through the text messages, and a broader picture begins to emerge of what happened to Timothy, especially in those final hours leading up to his death, in the early morning hours of July 6th. And what they find is just as shocking as the fact that Timothy died as a result of malnutrition. For roughly the last 9 hours that Timothy Ferguson was alive, he was in an ice bath. First monitored by Paul, and then by Shanda, Timothy Ferguson was forced to lay in an ice bath for 9 hours.
9 hours?
Already severely malnourished, already bone thin, forced to be in this bathtub. Again, first monitored by Paul, watched by Shanda from those cameras, and then by her when Paul goes to work. Timothy is too weak to even move on his own volition at that point. That's where the hypothermia comes into play. The medical examiner, puzzled at first, how can there possibly be hypothermia in a child of 15 years old at this time of year?
Yeah.
Well, when you spend 9 hours in an ice bathtub, that's what happens. You'll see the ice maker in the home, where the ice came from for his ice baths. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. You're going to hear it all in the text messages. And Ms. Vander Ark, again, when she talks to the police, she says, well, Timothy's he's just been on a hunger strike for the last 2 weeks. I didn't.
You don't go down of like 70 pounds in weight over the period of 2 weeks of a hunger strike. I don't even think you can survive 2 weeks without food. So, no, I don't buy that.
Know how bad it was getting until last night, and I made him a piece of toast.
One piece of toast.
And again, you don't have to take my word for it. On July 13th, almost 3 weeks before Timothy Ferguson passes away, Paul, in a moment of clarity, in a moment of sympathy for his brother, sees his brother without a shirt on and sends his mother a picture. Now, he's already rake thin at that point. Nothing more than skin and bones. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that any rational human being looking at that photograph would say, oh my God, we have got to do something to help this child.
Yeah.
What's Miss Vander Ark's response? Okay, give him some bread.
Wow.
A couple days after that, we learn what the hot sauce is for. Make sure you give him the bread with the hot sauce on it. Make sure he eats 4 slices of bread with hot sauce on it. And if he does that and waits 30 minutes, he can have some more slices without hot sauce.
So she expected a child to eat bread and survive of that. And then, but first she had to punish him for wanting to eat. And then she will give him the bread without the punishment. I can see why he wouldn't want it to eat.
This is a child who was already essentially on death's door with his malnutrition. And his mother, the person responsible for his care and custody and well-being, is telling her other son to feed him hot sauce. This isn't the only reference to hot sauce. You're going to hear multiple references to it throughout those text messages. At one point, Timothy commits the horrendous crime of eating the crust of a burger, leftover pieces of a burger. And when she finds out, what does she tell Paul Ferguson to do? Go make him throw up.
Wow.
Sadly, Paul does that. Go make him throw up because he ate the crust of a burger. It's difficult to wrap your mind around the level of depraved indifference shown to Timothy Ferguson. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why I will be asking you to return a verdict of guilty of a count of felony murder in the first degree and first-degree child abuse. The judge has gone over the elements of that crime, and you have them in your jury instructions, and I won't belabor the point here. But the people's position is that Shanda Vander Ark caused the death of Timothy Ferguson as a result of that malnutrition, as a result of her repeated denial of his access to food during the last months of his life. And that during the course of that time period, she was inflicting emotional, mental, and physical abuse upon him with her actions. And again, you're not going to have to take my word for it. You're going to see the text messages. You're going to hear those text messages. This afternoon, I anticipate that Lieutenant Hooksma and Detective Vaughn will be reading those text messages to you, one playing the part of Paul Ferguson, the other reading Ms. Vander Ark's texts. And like I said, they are shocking. They are truly shocking. Paul's testimony will be as equally shocking. And again, you don't have to like Paul Ferguson. I don't like Paul Ferguson. I hold Paul Ferguson responsible for the death of Timothy Ferguson just as I do the defendant in this case. But as we talked about in jury selection, it's not for you to decide what happens with Paul Ferguson. He's already made his choice, and he's agreed to cooperate and testify against his mother. And he will be pleading to a first-degree child abuse charge here. His sentence to be determined by Judge Case at a little later date. You don't have to like him, but I want you to listen to what he says, because everything that he says is going to be corroborated by the physical evidence in this case, especially those text messages. He's going to tell you how Timothy Ferguson was a prisoner in that home. When the officers arrived that day, they didn't realize they were walking into a prison cell, but they were. And the horrors they uncovered are horrors not even inflicted upon prisoners of war who get the protection of the Geneva Convention. Horrors we don't inflict on prisoners here in the United States who get regular meals and access to small freedoms. Timothy had none of that. That's the how of this, ladies and gentlemen. That is the how of how Timothy Ferguson died. Now, the better question, the harder question, that most of you will likely be asking yourselves is why? When I was in college, I discovered a musical group called 10,000 Maniacs.
Okay.
Their 1987 album, In My Tribe, begins with a song called What's the Matter Here? And it was the first time I remember being aware of socially conscious lyrics for a song. It's a very powerful, very moving song. Natalie Merchant is the lead singer for the group and wrote the song. And the song is about her being a person who's witnessing what she believes to be child abuse, the physical abuse of a child in the building she lives in, and the mental abuse inflicted upon that child by the child's parents. The bridge of the song, after she hears threats made to the child by the father, has these lyrics. Answer me and take your time. What could be the awful crime? He could do at so young an age. If I'm the only witness to your madness, offer me some words to balance out what I see and what I hear. These cold and lowly things that you do, I suppose you do because he belongs to you. And instead of love, you've given him these cuts and sores that don't heal with time or with age. Now, in the song, it's implied that she becomes the person who has the courage to speak up and say what's happening to this child and say, what's the matter here? She can stand up and protect the child. There was nobody that could stand up for Timothy Ferguson. There was nobody that could answer the question, what's the matter here? The defendant made sure that nobody could see Timothy Ferguson. Nobody could see what was being done to him. Can't even produce a picture on her cell phone of him in the last 6 months of his life. I don't know about the rest of you as parents, but you can go 10 photos in my photo stream on my phone without finding a picture of my kids. But nothing in the 6 months leading up to his death. What could be the awful crime he had done at so young an age? I can't answer the why for you. I don't have to answer the why for you. You will hear instructions from the judge that I don't have to prove the motive in this case. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that no why could possibly, as Natalie Merchant says in the song, no why could possibly justify the cold and lowly things done to Timothy Ferguson.
Yeah, I agree with him. Like, there's if you are caring for someone, if you're caring for your son or your stepson or whatever the case may be, you're in charge of them, if you like it or not. Like, maybe you don't like it, but like I said, you don't have to do it. It's incredible that someone can go as far as cause harm to another human being, let alone someone that is your son, your own flesh. And apparently, from what I'm hearing right now, he was just a kid. Like, he wasn't in trouble. He didn't hang out in bad places. There's no justification at all.
All we know is that they were done. And as a result, Timothy Ferguson died without anyone there to speak up for him, without anyone to say, what's the matter here? So, ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of these very difficult proofs, I will be asking you to return a verdict of guilty, the charge of first-degree felony murder and first-degree child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Johnson, do you wish to make an opening statement at this time?
I do.
All right, you may proceed.
All right, so we hear the opening statement from the state. Very powerful, very matter of fact. She just said, "Here's what you're gonna see. I have proof. I have the messages. We have video. We have her own son testifying against her." So I'm curious to see how the defense are gonna answer to that, because there's proof. Like, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how the defense is gonna go. Okay, what's with the theatric of moving you're moving away from the microphone? Like, why?
Yes.
Yes?
What he said, I don't have a lot to argue with that. Yup. That's what you're going to hear. All the things you're going to hear those things.
Okay.
Most of that evidence is not going to be controverted. All of it's going to come in almost exactly like he said it's going to come in.
So if he's gonna come in just like he said, how is it not gonna be controversial, my guy? That sounds really controversial.
And at the end of the day, you're going to say, what's up?
Also, speak up. You move the microphone away.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
We're here, folks. We're here, folks. Because this case is not just terrible. It's weird. It's just strange.
That's an understatement.
It goes into portions of our brains that we hope we don't have.
So you're saying that we think the same as her, so we can also do this.
I say that because I'm a lawyer. I was paying attention to what Mr. Roberts says. One of the things he didn't talk about was what the statute says, and the judge read you this morning, he's going to read you again. The exact word of the statute for this type of crime is knowing and intentional. All the things that he says that my client did, she has to know and she has to intend for either one of these charges to be found guilty. And you know, and if you had a recorder and you could hear his whole speech again, there's nothing about that. She knew, she intended. And you're going to be shown.
Okay, so he's trying to get out with a technicality. He's trying to say that she didn't mean it. She didn't know that if she fed him only bread with hot sauce that he was gonna peril. No, I'm sorry. If anyone on the jury has a kid, a niece, a nephew, a brother, they're not gonna buy that.
Text messages. A telephone book of text messages. And they're going to be read to you. Some of the juicier parts are going to be read to you. And I ask you to pay close attention to those text messages. Because when you listen,
I think they will, and I think that's not gonna help. Look at the size of this paper stack. Like the little clip is about to break. That's the amount of evidence she has against her. And now you're trying to say that those text messages, she didn't show any intent? I don't buy that.
listen to those text messages and you're paying attention. And understand, these text messages were made and created at a time nobody knew there'd be anybody who'd ever read them. In other words, nobody's trying to fake what they're saying in here because they don't know anybody else is ever going to read them.
So that makes it okay? Just because they thought that, oh, no one's going to hear these horrible things, I should be able to say them?
So this is what they're thinking at the time. This is what's going in there. All the things that are going in there is raw and it's real and it's unedited. It goes right in those text messages.
So you just said that those were real. So you just prove that everything that those text messages say is real. I don't think that you're that good of a lawyer, my guy.
And what you're going to hear over and over again, over and over, as you listen to these messages, is my client, shanda, vander, and her oldest son, Paul Ferguson, had no idea that they were hurting this boy.
I'm sorry, I just started with this, and this sounds ridiculous. I don't buy any of this. Like, the guy had 70 pounds less of what he should be. I don't buy that.
If you listen to those messages, they don't have a clue. And it's two of them. It's not just the one, not her and just him. At one point, he sends her the picture. At another point, she asks him, is he okay? Do you think we should feed him? And each time, the other person deflects and they continue to go on. They don't figure out that they're hurting Tim until he's dead. That's the first time it occurs to them, hey, we got a problem here.
Nah.
And they get mad, and they panic, and they try to make up stories. She's going to tell you, she's going to testify. She's going to tell you what's going on. But as you listen to Paul's testimony, and as you listen to my client's testimony, neither one of them are aware of what's obvious to him and you and him and all the rest of us. We're all going to see it. How could you not see it? But listen to it. They don't.
Okay.
They see things. They don't see the suffering. They don't see this. They call what they're doing to him punishments, and they consider in response to what he's doing. Over and over.
Also, it's the guy, it's the boy's fault. Okay.
Again, he's not going to win on this one. He's not going to get away with this. He's not going to do this. These are punishments that they feel are reasonable and are not hurting him. I have heard, and I expect Paul to take that stand and then tell you he wishes he could change everything now, and he wishes he could die for his brother now. But at the time he was doing these things, he didn't see a problem with it. In fact, Paul is the one. My client's the one. Paul wants to take it a step further. He wants to start getting physical with this boy. It's my client who tells me you're not allowed to do that. These are appropriate punishments. There's no intention. There's no intention to hurt or kill or to abuse this young man. My client will take the stand. You'll find out she's a highly intelligent person. She went to law school. She passed the bar examination. She was in the
I'm sorry, but if she did half of what I'm hearing right now, she's not intelligent.
process of trying to become licensed as this matter began. She graduated cum laude in her high school, college, second. I think law school, the second person on the list. She was clerking for judges. She was working and studying, and she was this close to achieving lifelong goals. Then she gets a call from her ex-husband. I'm putting Timothy out, the victim. You want him, or he's going to protective services. She takes him in.
Should have gone to protective services. Like I said, if the other person doesn't want to take care of him, and you don't have the means or the mental capacity to deal with him, he should have just gone to the other place.
She takes him in. She takes him in. Send him to me. I don't want my son in the system. Send him to me. She takes him. She brings him to her home. And then the wheels start to fall off in her life. Her husband gets seriously ill. She's now struggling with the expenses of the home and the 3 children and everything else that's going on. She's working, she's going to school, she's doing all these things. She's not sleeping. And something happens with her and Paul. They tend to see things that I can't, and I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctor coming here to tell you about this stuff. All I have is Exhibit 1 or whatever it's going to be. That's going to tell you these people don't know they're hurting this kid. They love this child. They don't know. They don't see it. Whatever's going on between them, they don't see it until it's too late. And that's what happens. There is a terrible situation. Everything he said, you're going to hear. He didn't lie to you. But there's no intention to hurt this child. They love this child. There's no intention to abuse this child. They love this child. But they just don't see what's before their eyes and what you and I can see. They don't see it. And so they continue on a course which was not only destructive to him, but led to this hearing.
Okay, so he just said something really important there. He said they don't see the damage that they're doing to the kid. But at the same time, he's saying that she's very intelligent. She was almost a lawyer or something like that. Those two things don't go together.
They have no interest in doing this personally or in terms of their love to their child. This is something they don't know they're doing. They don't get it. And poor Tim ends up paying the ultimate price. But this isn't murder. This is not murder.
What is it?
This is something's wrong, but it's not murder. And we're going to ask you to find my client not guilty. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
All right, so that was the opening statements of both the defense. I always look at these cases like if I were part of the jury, and if that information just came to me, and I still need to see the evidence, I still need to see the text messages and the testimony, but she doesn't look good in that case. This is not a good look for her, and I don't buy any of whatever the lawyer, her lawyer tried to say. Like, it doesn't make sense. But that was part 1. Follow me. Give it a like if you made it this far. Have a great day. I'll see you next time with the first witness. We're going right into the witnesses. Have a great day. Bye-bye.